All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Miami Women's Network and our Slant Walk Venture Talk today. The Miami Women's Network and the Cleveland Alumni Chapter are very excited to host conversations with fellow Miami alumni and leaders in the Cleveland community. Our group is dedicated to creating a community of Miami alumni from different backgrounds and career paths so we can connect, learn, and grow. This afternoon, we're going to talk to two women who have launched their own successful businesses, and will share with us what it's like to branch out on their own, manage their businesses through COVID, and what it takes to run a successful company. Today, I've got the distinct pleasure to introduce you all to Katie Burns and Kaleigh Gallagher.
Oh, hi.
Welcome, ladies. So a little background for all of you on each of them. Katie graduated from the Miami Farmers School of Business in 2008. She spent 10 years in corporate finance and then started her own business called Give Gifted, a customer giving company in Cleveland. Additionally, she owns a childcare with her husband called Kitty Academy and started a nonprofit called Forever My Baby You'll Be, which offers support for families experiencing a stillbirth, neonatal, or infant loss. And Kaleigh's passion is in empowering entrepreneurs and to help as many people as possible. She is the CEO and co-founder of Flutter Social. She's been featured on Fox Business, Growing Greater, Biz Women, and Cranes for Reimaging, and is responsible for overseeing the events industry and has launched data science in a national network of real remote planners. Prior to founding Flutter Social, Kaleigh was in the health tech commercialization at Cardinal Health and Cleveland Clinic Innovations, where she was responsible for different medical innovations, which were then brought to market. So Katie and Kaleigh, welcome. We're so excited to have you on this afternoon.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, everyone, hopefully you're excited. I'm very excited to talk to these two women today. So we've got some questions for each of you. I guess to kick it off, what was the turning point for you when you decided to branch out on your own? Katie, we'll start with you.
Sure. So for us, it was a really personal life event. Our oldest daughter, Emma, was stillborn at 36 weeks, and I was at the time working in my corporate finance job and working, like 60-hour weeks, and in an industry that generally did not care that tragedy and life happens outside of work. So after I gave birth, I had some resistance about taking any sort of maternity leave. And when I went back, it was just very obvious that this was not the trajectory I wanted my life to go. And I knew that I could do that work for the rest of my career and I would be fine, but I knew from an emotional and personal level, I would be very miserable. And we had hoped that we would be able to have other children. And I think that it was just eye-opening, life-changing event on many levels. And one was that, it made me sit back and I was like, I don't want to be sitting in an office for 70 hours a week if ever I'm blessed to have living children and have no control of my personal time. So it prompted to really dig deep and say, what else is there? So that was kind of what really forced me more than anything. I don't know that I would have done it if it wasn't for that.
Awesome. Kaleigh, what was the turning point for you? What made you want to leave the medical world and venture out?
Yeah. So I actually met my co-founder at Cleveland Clinic Innovations where we were working together. And it was a time in my life where all of my friends were getting married who had really demanding corporate careers. And the idea of taking on and planning a major event like that felt like a second job for a lot of people. And so after seeing that problem, several, time and time again, it just got to the point where it was like, wedding planners should be accessible to everyone at a cost that everyone can afford so they can, actually enjoy this time in their life. And at that point, after circulating it with a lot of our friends and family, Marcy and I decided to take the leap and venture into Flutter Social.
That's awesome. Now, so Kaleigh, did you jump in with a lot of planning with your co-founder, or a lot of capital and planning, or was it more of like a leap of faith?
Yeah. As much as I would like to think there was planning involved, like you can never have a full plan in place before, just taking action. So we actually just jumped right in. We did a little bit of market research on our own, a kind of validation with user interviews and things like that. But we felt confident enough to just take the leap and, build it as we went. We bootstrapped for a long time, so we were not well funded at the beginning.
Would there, if you could give, a piece of advice, a lot of people that log into these calls are very interested in entrepreneurship themselves. What is the best piece of advice you could give to a budding entrepreneur, on, whether that's selling on the investors or, what you could offer looking back on your experience?
Yeah. So I think entrepreneurship is just like a series of experiments, right? So I think thinking about entrepreneurship in any kind of like traditional or structured way can kind of hinder that experiment process. So whether you're, have a side hustle or you're jumping to something full time, like think of ways that you can just validate your idea in little ways, continuously. So it doesn't have to be some grand event where you just jump off and into this new venture. There's constantly little ways that you can start to build traction and understand that there's a need or an interest for what you want to build.
Awesome. And then Katie, Kaleigh and I were talking, did you and your husband jump in with a lot of planning and capital behind you to start your businesses, or was it a leap of faith, gut instinct?
So, well, with Get Gifted, that was the first business that I sort of, moved my career path into. And with my business partner in that venture, similar to Kaleigh, we bootstrapped a lot, and we really did not do a ton of planning. It kind of happened one morning at my kitchen table over coffee. And the next thing we knew, we kind of were just going into it, which, I'm sorry, hold on one second. Sorry, and I have kids running around, so you have to bear with me. I'm sorry. Hold on one second. I'm so sorry. Hold on one second.
This is a good window into real life entrepreneurship.
It sure is. Well, so Kaleigh, tell us a little bit more about Flutter Social. I know you use an algorithm to partner vendors with different clients. How did you go about developing that? How's it been working for you?
Yeah, so you're right. Flutter Social started off as a matchmaking algorithm to help people better find local vendors that fit their style, budget, and were available for their day, because a major event like a wedding, you hire up to 14 different vendors. So building that algorithm was one of the earlier things that we did when we started Flutter. And it really just was, again, working really closely with our user base to understand what decisions were most important to them to go from finding a vendor to actually hiring a vendor. We documented that process, put weighted values to like what was involved in that decision making. So whether, budget played heavily into it, style, availability, connection to other people. So whether a friend has used that professional before, or your venue recommended a vendor, all those factors weighed into this algorithm. And then what we learned after implementing that algorithm for a little over a year was people planning major events wanted more than just help finding vendors. So the algorithm was just a part of the overall solution that we evolved into. And from there, we pivoted into a virtual event planner platform. So the algorithm definitely plays a part in that now, but it's a tool in the overall business.
Okay. So with that development, were there anything like, did you have to go through like patents, or was it mostly just developing, the research from doing it and then you're putting the weighted tools to it?
Yeah, I have a lot of experience working with patents from my time at Cleveland Clinic. The algorithm at Flutter Social is not patent protected.
And then, starting your own business, right? A lot of capital goes into that. So what advice can you give to those that want to be entrepreneurs on growing and raising that capital?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, when I was starting out, I had other entrepreneurs who were, ahead of me, and I looked to as mentors, ask me, well, why do you want to raise money? So I think a lot of the time, when you hear entrepreneurship, you think, okay, well, raising venture dollars. And that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. I think you need to think about what type of business you want to run, how you want to run it, and the actual resources you need at each stage in that process. So we did for a long time just, bootstrapped, put our own money in and reinvested into the company. And then when we got to a point where we felt that to get to the next phase, a lot of with building the infrastructure for this virtual event planner platform is when we went to go raise some outside capital. And that process was, I guess the biggest takeaway is just everyone wanted to see traction. So being able to really tell that story and understand how can I best demonstrate what we've done and where we're going to each type of person or investor group that we're speaking with. So, and then just really leaning into your network. So whether that be your professional network, your alumni network, friends and family, that's how we raised the capital that we did.
That's awesome. Katie, welcome back. Busy day at the Burns house.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
I said a busy day at the Burns house.
Sorry, it's always something.
That is awesome. So I was, I had asked Kaleigh this and wanted to ask you as well. What's the best piece of advice you could give to a budding entrepreneur?
I would say just to have a lot of patience. I'm sorry, which is normal over here. But
where did you charge my finger?
it's in the bathroom. Sorry. I'm so sorry. Just a lot of patience. I think that having an idea and executing an idea are really difficult to begin with. Sorry, you guys. So I think that having those ideas, you may have had those ideas for years, and then to actually become, get to the point where you're ready to execute, you might be ready and you're at the point where you're like, okay, it's time. I'm comfortable. I'm excited about it. But I still think that it takes time for other people to see those ideas, understand those ideas, start to take in those ideas. And I think that patience is so important. People say when you start a new business, give yourself 2 to 3 years before, you can turn a profit and start to feel like you have footing under your feet and ground under your feet. And I think it's one thing to hear it, and then it's another thing to actually live it. It's really, really difficult. So I'm just by nature an impatient person. So that has been the hardest part for me. And just keeping the faith that, you have this idea, you have this business, and you're passionate about it. And if you stick with it, it will take. But it's hard work.
Awesome. No, I know. So both of you work with, with a partner in your businesses. So, Katie, what are the pros and cons to, having a co-founder, a partner in a new venture?
Well, so I have two. I have my friend and co-founder Jennifer with Give Gifted, and then I have my husband. And I would say both are beneficial and difficult in different ways. With Jennifer, we are opposites in how we think as far as like business goes. So she's super creative and she is amazing with executing these creative ideas that we need to execute for Give Gifted. I'm more of like the financial and logistical part, which is super helpful. So we both bring to the table in this business what you need to keep a business going. And we really do work well together as far as bouncing ideas off of one another, keeping each other in check, just because, you know, it's normal to have ideas that may or may not work. My husband has been a very, very eye-opening business partner in that it changes your relationship so much to have to go from, you know, household duties, responsibilities with children, straight to work. You know, we've never seen each other more than we have in the past year, and it's been a big adjustment. And it also has been a very, very steep learning curve in separating work life and trying to figure out a new, you know, a new groove. But both are really, I feel really blessed that I have two people who I trust with my entire life that I can do with.
Awesome. Then Kaleigh, you've got a co-founder as well. Any pros and cons you can share with those that want to be entrepreneurs about going into business with another person?
Yeah, Katie covered a lot of it. I can relate to a lot of that. Yeah, so my co-founder, we definitely have complementary skill sets. Marcy is an engineer, very analytical. I'm more on the business and relationship side of things. So any idea, anything we're executing, we definitely come at it from different perspectives, which is helpful. And similar to Katie, we had the pleasure of working with each other for a while or knowing each other for a while, which I think is huge, just because you are spending a lot of time with this person in a very close, intimate way, and making really important decisions together that impact the business, but also, you know, the culture and the lifestyle in which you both want to work. So yeah, complementary skill sets is huge. And then really just knowing them and understanding them and liking them as a person.
Yeah. Oh, and can I add one more thing that I was thinking of when you mentioned this? I think obviously it's different if you're in business with a spouse or a partner, but I think if you're in business with a friend or somebody who you've worked with in the past and you shift, one of the biggest eye-opening things for me was to just get everything in writing. You never know, you know, if 5 years from now, one of us wanted to pivot and change careers or change businesses and not focus on this business anymore. If we didn't have something in writing that would say, well, here's what happens with X, Y, and Z, it would be a really difficult conversation to have in the time where maybe emotions are heightened. And I just always suggest, it was something I learned years ago with a separate business that I was not involved in, but I witnessed some change, and it was just nothing was in writing for this business. And it was just a really, really eye-opening learning experience for me, in that, you know, you could have an amazing working relationship with somebody, but life changes and people do have to, you know, pivot sometimes. So having everything in writing so that you protect the business and the relationship was something that somebody taught me that I think is really important.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great advice. And you both touched on it a little bit. So, you know, in starting, you know, your own business, obviously that takes a lot of energy, a lot of time, a lot that goes into it. So, you know, how have you managed to create a sense of, you know, work-life balance? Or, you know, is that something that, you know, you maybe, you know, forego in those first couple of years of launching a new business?
I'll go first if you don't mind, Kaleigh. I think it's really hard. I mean, it just really is. So with Give Gifted, we had a lot more flexibility because we did everything from our homes. We did it around our children's schedules. With the childcare center and opening Kitty Academy, it was a lot different because we have a building. We had to gut the building. We had to do construction. We had to make large decisions as far as, you know, finishes, and there was a time frame that we had to follow. And all of that, coupled with opening as the world was shutting down for a global pandemic, has been really, really hard. And I don't think that there's any sugarcoating that. I think, you know, the silver lining of it all is that it, you know, we joke, my husband and I, but like, if we could survive the past year, we can survive almost anything. but it's been very difficult. It's very helpful that it's a business that we can bring our children to, but it has been all consuming. So I think that it's important just to note that you just have to be prepared to be, all in, fully all in, because there's very little downtime in the beginning. And I work now more than I ever did in corporate America, which is what I left for, but it's different because I can control a lot of the variables that I wasn't able to control in the corporate world.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I think there's times where I'm better about this than others. It's very easy to get sucked into everything that has to get done. Someone once told me that a startup will take up as much space as you give it, which is very true because there's always things to be done and, a timeline that you're working against. I do try and make time for running and some personal time that way. But I think with running your own business too, I don't have any children, but my co-founder does. So also just understanding that you do have some flexibility in the way that you work. So making sure that, we're working around things that are prioritized for both of us, whatever that may be. But it is a lot of work and it's very time consuming, and it will take up as much space as you give it, for sure.
So true.
That makes sense. And then, so, during this last year, it's been, a little bit of a whirlwind, and, both of you have businesses that, I'm sure were affected through the pandemic. So what advice can you give, either entrepreneurs that are on now or those that want to be entrepreneurs as far as, pivoting to be successful in an unpredictable situation like we've had for the last year?
Yeah, I can jump in.
Yeah.
So for us, events were shut down. So we had a lot of major launches lined up, different marketing campaigns and things like that for our virtual event planners the day that the national emergency was announced. So it literally shut Flutter Social down overnight for a period of time. What we spent that time doing was we had a lot of couples impacted, obviously. So there was a lot of, panic and confusion around the events that they had coming up. And so we shifted from what felt like event planners to really, therapists in a lot of ways, just trying to help people navigate the changing scenarios that were, down to the county level, changing on a daily basis. Managing our existing base, and then also just kind of hearing from people that we gave them the tools to help them navigate this experience directly. So we created some digital tools during our downtime to share with our couples. We made our planners more accessible to everyone during office hours and things like that, just to help manage kind of the confusion that was happening. And then really just, being patient and, cutting costs and as much as we could during this time. And now that we've made it to the other side, it's very exciting, but it was a long year.
Yeah. For us, the gifting business was shockingly, people were staying home, and that prompted them to want to send gifts and, to make people feel like they were close to one another. So as, for Give Gifted, we were really blessed that we still had people calling and wanting, we pivoted a bit, and we did contactless porch pickup, and we did contactless drop-offs. At the time when all the confusion initially started, we were literally buying gifts and putting them together with gloves and masks on, like from the beginning, just to ensure everybody remained safe. But we feel like our business sort of became a connector during a time where people really did not have connection with other humans. So that was really an interesting and special and unexpected thing that we did, that Jennifer and I did not see coming with Give Gifted. With Kitty Academy, we were in the process of renovations when the national emergency orders were put into place. And it slowed us down a bit, but we were lucky that they were able to continue going. And so we opened our doors July 2nd last year to one child. It was so much uncertainty around, were people going to send children to daycare and to preschool and to summer camp? Was it safe for children to be in these places? There were so many questions. And honestly, looking back, we literally were doing like one day at a time because we just did not know. And we continue to just be agile and flexible because that was our only choice. I mean, we had no choice but to do the best we could with what we were given. And so, yes, I feel like we kind of are turning the corner now, but it's been very difficult.
Certainly, understandably so, but it's good. Good that it seems everyone is turning a corner, and good that you're seeing that as well.
Yeah.
So if you were to have to do the entrepreneurial process all over again and start from scratch, what's one thing you would change? Katie, we can start with you.
Oh my God. Not opening during a global pandemic. I mean, honestly, I really think that's all I can say. With the business, with the childcare business especially, I mean, it was just horrible timing and we had no control over it. So that would really be it. I just think I don't think I would change anything. I mean, hindsight, of course, is 2020, but it really toughens you up. It thickens your skin. And I think that the hurdles and the challenges that we've faced both with Give Gifted and Kitty Academy I try to look at them as challenges for the future to do better and to know better. And I think it's completely normal. We're human to go in not knowing all the answers. And I think that's okay. And I think that is what makes people successful, is being able to say we made a mistake because we didn't know, and now that we know better, we'll do better. So I don't think I would have changed anything, because it was a really good learning process.
How about you, Kaleigh? Anything you do differently, being able to look back?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, again, it's like, would you have learned the same things had you done it a different way? But we started in a very localized approach. So we started rolling out region by region, because our initial concept was a very kind of localized word of mouth strategy. And we decided to pivot from that and take more of a national approach, which turned out to be a much faster way for our marketing purposes. So I think having learned from that, maybe going straight into the national approach just with the virtual event planners. But again, I don't know that we would have realized that having not gone through the test of the localized approach. So, but that's it. Everything else has served a purpose, whether it's just learnings or otherwise.
That's great. And with both of your businesses, I guess Kaleigh, I'll start with you. I'm sure there's a lot of contact between vendors and planners. So how do you go about your vetting process and how you bring on new people?
Yeah, so we do. We have a national network of professional event planners. We bring them on like you would bring on any hire. So they go through a really diligent screening process. We look at their past portfolio. We talk to past clients and other vendors that they've worked with. And we're looking for, diversity and experience from a lot of different levels, whether that be style, location, types of events, things like that. So a lot of those professionals, especially during the pandemic, have found us looking for remote virtual opportunities to apply their skill set, which has been a positive of this whole thing. And then it's just a matter of, you know, putting them through the process. They go through our training program, and after that, then they start working with clients that that are a good match for what they're looking for based on their experience and things like that.
That's awesome. How long is the hiring process typically?
It's from the time we get them in for the first interview. We usually can wrap it up within a month, and we bring on planners in batches just because to make training more efficient. And then they have a cohort of other planners, you know, to collaborate with and things like that.
That's awesome. And then Katie, you've got two very distinct businesses to hire from. So how do you go about vetting your vendors and then ultimately employees as well?
Yeah, so for Give Gifted, we vet our vendors. It's just Jennifer and I as far as the business goes. So it's very lean. And we vet our vendors from all different aspects of their social media profiles, word of mouth. If we know them personally and we've tried their products, that's obviously a huge plus, and that's kind of the first go into the working with them. But we have a vendor application process as well, and we vet everybody, like I said, through social and through trying products. If it's not something that Jennifer and I have used or tried or loved ourselves, we won't include it in a gift. And everything that we do focuses around, you know, contributing to the local entrepreneur pool that we have here in Northeast Ohio. So we do really try to showcase and highlight local vendors and makers. For the business, I will say the one thing that you really don't learn in business school is how to manage people. It's one of those things, like, you can't learn how to do that until you're in it. That's definitely been the hardest part of running the Child Care Center for me personally the past year. Is just managing people is really hard. Hiring people is really hard. And until they're in the building and until you can see them interact with the children and other staff, you don't know for sure. So I will say we've gotten better at it, but in the beginning there was a lot of turnover because what you think will work sometimes does not. And the hiring pool that we have had the past year has been very lean as well. I mean, it's been difficult to find good candidates. So it's a learning process like everything else.
Absolutely. I experienced that as well.
It's hard. It's really hard.
Definitely. So Katie, in addition to the two businesses you have, you also have the nonprofit as well. Knowing that there is not a whole lot of outlet out there for people that are struggling with that kind of loss, what avenues or resources do you provide to those couples or individuals going through that?
Yeah. So, and that was, you said it exactly there. There's not a lot that's openly known because nobody really talks about loss, and losing a baby is not something that anybody plans to happen in their life. So it's a really, really isolating tragedy for a lot of people. And Kevin and I, after our oldest passed away, we felt completely alone. There were really no resources we got when we left the hospital other than they offered to put me on an antidepressant, and that was it. So when we left, by word of mouth and just truly by luck, we were put in contact with another couple in the area who had experienced this years before. And they really held our hands and they really helped us. And we both were like, there has to be a bigger network of people who have experienced this, and how can we connect them with people who are just recently going through this? So that was really why we started Forever My Baby, just so that we could be there for other people who are experiencing this loss. So we have a community of women and men who have lost babies who are there for other people as they're navigating the loss initially, because it's so difficult. But yeah, just being there for one another. I think especially this past year, not being able to see people, not being able to have family come to the hospital after having a loss, it's unimaginable. So we've really just been there to be a shoulder to cry on, and just to say, you know, I am not a therapist. I'm not a professional, but what I can tell you is that I've been through it. And sometimes that's what people need, is just to hear, like, this is hard and I'm here for you. So that was our hope with Forever My Baby.
That is great. Yeah, I know there are not a lot of outlets. That's really fantastic that you guys have done that.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about growing a business through COVID. So Kaleigh, what's next for Flutter Social?
Yeah, so we've got a lot of exciting partnerships lined up. So we're in the process of rolling some of those out, but it's really about adding more value and creating a really curated experience for all of our hosts. So up until recently, we've been very focused on weddings. We're expanding into other types of events. So as the world opens up, our event planners are available to help everyone, no matter what type of celebration that they're planning. So between partnerships and expanding to other types of events, it's an exciting time for Flutter.
That is awesome. And then Katie, what's up next for Gifted?
So we are, if you can believe it, we already have to start thinking about holiday. That's our busy time. So in the past, we've done large shopping events. So Jennifer and I right now are trying to figure out, is that something that's feasible this year? Are we going to do our large marketplace? So we're looking to that. And we're looking, like I said, to plan holiday, just because we have a ton of corporate clients at that time of year. And this is when we start to reach out to them. And for Kitty Academy, it's just, we're going to continue to ramp up enrollment and just keep going day by day. That's all you can do.
That is great. And then, I mean, you both gave some great advice from your own experiences. Any advice that you have gotten that you would want to share with the group?
So much advice. I feel like there's so much advice that's given. I would say a learning I've had is not to take all the advice, for sure, because there is a lot of it. And it's a skill to understand, what makes sense and what doesn't, because no one has all the insight that you have or the vision that you have. But a piece that I will share is, just don't give up. If you need to rest or pivot or, figure something else out, like try all of those alternatives before throwing it in. And I think there's been times where we could have very easily just, thrown in the towel. But I think giving ourselves the space to think creatively and things like that has gotten us through some times that otherwise probably we wouldn't have.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
And Katie, any advice that you've received?
Yeah, I mean, Kaleigh is so right. I think navigating the advice and deciding what works for you and what doesn't is huge. So, take my words with a grain of salt. But I would say the biggest piece of advice I've received that has worked well for me is just make sure to establish boundaries that work within your life. Similar to what Kaleigh said earlier, when you start something, you could work 24 hours a day on it, literally. So, for me, it was really important to be able to say, like, these are the times of day that I focus on this. These are the times of day that I have to take a mental break. I have to do something for myself. I have to, be with my children and my family. So that was really important. And the other thing, which I still tell myself this every day, is just start before you're ready. Just go. You are never going to be able to launch something perfectly. That doesn't exist. And if you have an idea that you can't stop thinking about, do it, because the worst that's going to happen is you you don't do it forever, you know, but I've always felt, and I've always really held on to the advice that if you can't stop thinking about it, you will regret more that you didn't do it than waiting until you think it's the right time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then, with those pieces of advice, is there anything specific to women that you'd give advice to? Being an entrepreneur is difficult, and any advice you'd give, specifically to women that want to be in that leadership, that entrepreneurial role?
I mean, for me, I think, again, this is like a lesson learned is like entrepreneurship doesn't have to look the same for everyone. So a lot of the content that's out there, a lot of the examples of like, success stories and things like that, there's no subscription on how that happens. So if your life looks different, if your path looks different, if the way you work looks different, your ideas look different, how you conduct business is different, then that should be celebrated. And just know that you are, creating, you're an example for someone else. And I think we need more examples like that. So yeah, I think at the beginning it was very much like trying to operate in a way that worked for some of maybe, our male counterparts, and that just wasn't working for Marcy and me. So creating our own story and our own path has been much more authentic.
That's great.
For sure. Yeah, to that point, I would say we have found, especially Jennifer and I have found that community, collaboration, that's what drives success. And like Kaleigh said, it looks different for everybody. But when we have leaned into the other women who, are starting businesses, who are creative people and awesome thinkers, that has been the best. There's room for everybody. I think women do carry and juggle so many different hats that, it's easy sometimes to forget that standing up for yourself and putting yourself out there is important. So I think that's number one. Just always remember your voice and your gut. We have amazing gut instincts as women. I think that your voice and your gut are huge, and listen to them.
That is great. Awesome. Well, Katie, Kaleigh, I really appreciate you guys taking time this afternoon to share with us all your experiences, and very excited to see everything that comes from Give Gifted, Kitty Academy, and Flutter Social as well. So thank you both so much.
Thank you. Sorry about the kids before. Real life.
It's perfect.
Real life over here,
That's good to see. That's what we want to see.
Yeah, we're doing it.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
well, thank you both so much.
All right. See ya.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this event.
Thanks.